Good morning to all. I'll officially call the June 18th, 2020 Public Safety Meeting to order. And Chief, once again, because you're always reliable with the flag, would you please lead us in the pledge there?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning to you all. We've got some feedback, so if you're not talking, if you could just be on mute just to help with the audio, that would be great. I will first quickly go through the roll just to make sure we've got everybody. Obviously, Melissa is still enjoying family time, and that is excellent. I hear they're all doing well. Chief Baldus, morning.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, Chief. Michael Berry. There's Michael.
Michael Berry's here.
Morning. Chief Bolter.
Good morning.
Town Manager Maria Cabriola.
Morning.
Kristen Formanak, Social Services.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Jennifer Gratanis, Health District.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jennifer. Kevin Kowalski, the man of the meeting.
Morning.
Good morning, sir. Everybody make note that I believe this is Mr. Kowalski's last go-around with this crew. Well, in his official capacity. No, I suspect he'll be back. Mark Critz.
Morning.
Mark. Mike Long, Police Commission. Morning.
Morning. Hello.
Melissa Marquis, District as well. No. Mark Massaro.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mark from Eversource. Sarah Nielsen from Main Street.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah. Chris Peterson, my colleague on the board.
Hey, good morning, folks.
Morning, Chris. Tom Roy, Public Works.
Present.
Morning, Tom. Nancy Sheets, VNA. Nancy had an awful lot, huh? Karen Stewart, Ambulance.
Morning, I'm here.
Morning, Karen. Neil Sullivan, Schools.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, Neil. And Gary Wilcox with his iPad.
Good morning.
There you go, Gary. Obviously from the fire district. Good morning, all. Do we have any other folks on the line that I neglected to introduce? All righty, we'll get right to it. You have a copy of the minutes from the June 4th meeting. Once again, expertly taken. And Maria, just a technical note, we do have a clerk for this.
Yeah, so Karen was unable to clerk and we had a hard time finding a replacement. So Tom's going to clerk for us today.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure that we had the transparency needed for the public. All right. Any questions, objections, changes to the June 4th minutes? All right. Hearing none, those minutes will stand. All right. We'll jump right to it. Jennifer Gratanis from the Health District.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Well, we'll start with a little bit of good news. We have been seeing consistent declines in both new cases and hospitalizations across the state. And that is true for the Farmington Valley towns as well. We have also seen significant improvement in our congregate living facilities with respect to new cases, and that was a real hotspot, if you will, across the state. We still are seeing approximately 1,000 new cases a week in Connecticut. So it's important to emphasize that this virus is still circulating within our community. We are seeing upticks in cases in states nearby us and across the country. So I just want to reinforce that now is not the time for our community and our residents to become complacent. We need to really, be reminded that this virus has not gone away, and we need to continue to do the things that keep both individuals and our communities safe. So I'll just remind everybody that this includes things like staying home if you are sick. Quite frankly, the symptomatology of this virus has shifted over time. So, stay home if you're sick, regardless of symptoms. If you do have symptoms consistent with COVID, which has clearly been expanded over time, seek medical advice and get tested. Testing helps us identify active cases, and that allows us to do contact tracing, which is really critical to continuing to slow the spread of this virus. Hand hygiene, social distancing, mask wearing, all of these things we still need to be doing and encouraging people to do. We have entered into phase 2 of reopening. This means more businesses are opening, although we have found that restaurants are really taking it slow relative to indoor dining. Other personal service types of activities are opening. Again, working very closely with all of them to make sure that they're instituting the sector guidelines as outlined by the state. I think in general it's going reasonably well, but again, we just need people to be reminded to do the right things. School graduations are taking place, and we've consulted with Simsbury regarding graduation and end of school celebrations, and I think in general those are going reasonably well. The district is still supporting a PPE distribution, primarily for community-based healthcare providers, home health, some home health, and that's going reasonably well, although I'm glad that the supply chain in most instances is opening up so that people and businesses can access what they need directly as we move forward. And the other thing I'll mention is that obviously the district is going to have to gear up to do vaccinations when and if vaccinations become available. And we are also working with the visiting nurses to conduct drive-through flu clinics, one hosted in Simsbury, another hosted in Avon, end of September, early October. It is going to be really critically important that we increase the number of people that get flu vaccine so that we can protect the healthcare system in the fall if we have both influenza as well as COVID circulating, which we anticipate will be the case. So that's it from me for now.
Jennifer, thank you, and appreciate all your efforts. Just a couple of quick questions. We've been getting obviously some frustration and feedback from the community as folks get information from the internet, from Facebook, from their friends, from the news, from different places. Can you talk about your advice and what the path looks like for playgrounds and other community type gathering areas? Because obviously with summer and school out, moms and dads, much like myself, are trying to find things to do with their kids.
Yeah, so in the phase 2 guidelines, there was some loosening up of requirements around like youth sports and recreational activities.
Right.
They did identify certain sports, basketball being one, as kind of a higher risk sport. The guidelines, as far as I can tell, was silent on playgrounds. Playgrounds, in my opinion, I think like basketball games and basketball courts, we should pause a little bit and maybe consider as part of phase 3. And the reason I say that is it's very difficult for little kids to socially distance. It is very challenging to keep playground surfaces, clean and sanitized. Kids put their hands in their mouths all the time. So my recommendation at this point is to go slow on the reopening of playgrounds and basketball courts in particular. But if we continue to see these downward trends, that's something that we could revisit in, phase 3 or early July.
I appreciate that, Jennifer. Thank you. And it was important to articulate that because I think there's a misunderstanding out there that myself as a volunteer elected official with no actual knowledge of the situation is making decisions on playgrounds and other things like that. And we're simply not. We're certainly relying on the advice of you and the other true experts on this. And not shifting the responsibility. I'm just saying that, you know, we're making sure that we're getting the latest, most intelligent facts on the situation to keep the community safe. And that I know it's frustrating for some folks that we can't have a playground open or otherwise, but it really is in your family's best interest at this point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Jennifer,
Just a quick, go on.
Go ahead.
thank you, Sarah. This is Nick. Jennifer, you mentioned 1,000 new cases. What was the time period for that?
A week. We're seeing about statewide about 1,000 new cases over a week.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sean, just a quick thank you again to Jennifer Curtanis and Jason Brown and her team. In addition to all of the COVID-related stuff, they're still doing all of the reopening inspections for the restaurants. They're handling and coordinating all of the phase 2 efforts, and they've just been absolutely outstanding and very pro-business while at the same time keeping our public safe. So just a thank you from the business community.
Absolutely. No, that's very good, Sarah. I appreciate that. And, you know, again, from my experiences here and everything that I've seen, Jennifer, you guys are doing an outstanding job. So do appreciate that very much.
Thank you. And thanks for all of your support.
Of course. Other questions for Jennifer before we let her go do the 10,000 other things she's probably got on her list this morning? All right. Jennifer, thank you. Maria, Town Manager.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. So want to lead off this morning with an update on what is currently open for our town facilities and programs. Our town parks, open space parcels, and trails are still open. They are being heavily used at this time. Some big opening dates this weekend for the Parks and Recreation Department. Those folks are incredibly busy at the moment, making sure that everything is prepared adequately. Our pools will be opening over the weekend on June 20th. Our summer camp program will be opening on Monday, June 22nd. And many of our youth sports, as Jennifer mentioned, will be able to begin practicing and to a certain extent having some form of organized play. They will start again this weekend. So some of our related athletic fields that support the organized sports, particularly for children, will be reopening again this weekend. The golf course is open. The restaurant has opened at this point with outdoor dining. We are also taking steps to reopen the pro shop. And I believe we have reported on this, but our Board of Ed and town tennis courts have reopened. There is modified practices that we're asking of folks, and we have signage posted at those locations. The library's curbside pickup program for materials has been very successful. We did a full rollout of that program on June 1st, and things are going very well with that at this point. While technically libraries are permitted to reopen during phase 2, there are just a lot of logistics that need to be in place in order to ensure the safety of our patrons and the public, our patrons and our employees. So the library will remain closed to the public at least until July 5th. That date may be extended, but we'll continue to update the community on that. We are continuing to prepare our buildings to have our employees come back in our administrative buildings at about 50% capacity. That will be, again, this coming Monday, June 22nd. Our senior center will remain closed until at least Labor Day, possibly later. We are not accepting cash payments through at least September 14th. And we have also been evaluating and preparing building modifications such as partitions, screens, et cetera, again, as we prepare for more of our workforce to come back to our buildings. And that's something that Tom will most likely elaborate on later in the meeting. And as a reminder, we continue to enforce some of the various sector rules that have been implemented. The The police department, planning and building departments continue to be the lead departments working on that for us when we do receive a complaint that needs to be investigated. Regarding our public meetings, those do continue to also be closed to the public. I did check in with the Freedom of Information Commission yesterday just to see if they had heard anything in terms of when that might possibly be lifted. They have not received an update on that. So while I don't have a firm date, I'm at this point in a mode of operating as if we will most likely be doing this at least through the summer. So we're continuing to utilize video Zoom at this point, with meetings airing live on SCTV and at simsburytv.org. The property tax deferral program that the Board of Selectmen adopted, we now have 46 approved applications for that program. That has resulted in approximately $349,000 in deferred revenue, and that deferred revenue is for a 90-day period. My office and the fire district and the health district have been working on some COVID testing that we could offer to the community here in Simsbury. The Board of Ed staff has been very helpful as well, and they have agreed to host that at the Simsbury High School location. That will occur in the parking lot, most likely in late June. Once we do have additional information on that, such as how people can register for the testing, we'll make sure to put that information out through our email subscription service as well as our social media accounts. And lastly, I just want to congratulate Mike Berry. He will be replacing Kevin in the capacity of Emergency Management Director on July 1st. So definitely looking forward to working with him in that new capacity. And also just really want to wish Kevin well in his retirement. It's very well deserved. He has served our community incredibly well. And again, just want to wish him the best. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I don't believe that Kevin's retiring yet until I actually see it. But Kevin, it's been a joy. I've known you as you know, and the story goes, and I'm going to tell it one more time, since I was in elementary school. And the reason Kevin and I met in elementary school is because my mother and Kevin knew each other and still do, as many that grew up in this town. And I was much like many young kids was interested in campfires. And my friends and I would go off into the woods in Henry James and build these little rock structures, and we make nice little campfire, and we'd have fun back there. Well, mom found out, and mom called her good friend Kevin, and also the youth officer at the time, Rennie Hansen, if you guys remember him. And Rennie came down and picked me and my friends up in the squad car. We sat in the back. We went down to the booking room. And the fire marshal came in, and the fire marshal explained to us the perils of playing with fire. And then obviously it's a funny story, but it's also a good one because it's always stuck with me, the type of approach that, Kevin, you've taken with helping out families, taking your role very seriously, but also, in a respectful way, because I've never forgotten that, instilling a really important lesson in a young kid that's carried through. So that's to me always been a really close to the best example of why I've appreciated working with you. And it makes everybody laugh because I got hauled down to the station. But Kevin,
that's good.
I can't thank you enough for all your work for this community. And so much of it goes without folks seeing. We give you a hard time for the texting Eversource or everything else, but you've been at the front line of getting results with all of your colleagues on this phone for us in some of the most challenging days, whether it was Sandy, with the shelters, whether it's been late night rescues, pulling people out of their homes with when there's been flooding or otherwise. So thank you, sir.
Thanks, John. Kind words.
Anyone else want to roast Kevin, or we want to let him do his update? Kevin, why don't you take it off there with the emergency management update for us?
Sure. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Michael had to step out a bit, so I'm going to take a lot of the incident and action plan. Again, was put out this week, and with an eye towards recovery more so than action. We're looking at the recovery section of this again. It was good to hear that the long-term care facilities the pressure is a little bit off on their amount of positive cases. So that's really good news. That was one of the objectives that we set out in the beginning. I believe our first responders are also in pretty good shape from our reports that we have no documented cases within the firehouses. And I haven't heard, but I believe Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in pretty good shape too.
Yes, we are.
As well as the PD. So that is really a super part of it, especially when you hear of other departments where they have entire firehouses that have tested positive. So that took care of another objective that we had right off the beginning of this pandemic. A little bit about the mask program. The mask program, apparently they are out of masks for the businesses at this point. I was happy to see that Karen was able to get some masks to Sarah for the businesses to make sure that they are supplied, especially at this point where we're opening up interior dining. It's going to be really important that masks are made available to the folks that don't have them. Interesting point. In Florida, actually, my wife is there, and she said that when she got there, it was very kind of scary almost because not many people were wearing masks other than her and some of the folks that were with her. So they're looking at 25 and 2,600 a day testing positive out of the whole state. Understand, which is a huge state, but still, it's a little bit eye opening. So I'm not sure exactly, but from what all I'm hearing is that the masks really make a difference. So we're encouraging that, and we're going to try to see what we can do about continuing the mask program through the state to see what's necessary there to get them. Sarah, I'm going to need to know from you if the businesses are having problems getting them through their normal supply chain, and if they are, then that's when we'll help out. As far as testing goes, as Maria mentioned, the testing is scheduled towards the end of the month at the high school. We're going to be setting up on the sidewalk in front of the office area there in Tents for 2 days, and initially will be the folks that police, fire, anybody else that needed to be tested, and then it'll be open to the public. And we're hoping to change over. They have a new program, hopefully be released today, to sign up online, so it'll eliminate any of the paperwork that's being handled. We are at the firehouse going to have a test set up on the 24th of this month. It'll be next week. It'll be at the main firehouse starting at 8 o'clock. We do have some slots open available. I know that we're going to be working with the school. They have a group that has stepped forward that want to get tested as soon as possible. So they're looking upwards of 100 potentially coming in, and it may come in on the 24th. We'll fill whatever slots they're available. Right now we're scheduled to be open for 3 hours, but that could stay open for 8 for the testing. So we have approximately 28 signed up out of the fire department, and I anticipate probably another 10 to 20 more signing up here for the 24th. If anyone is not going to be around for the end of the month, like the 29th or 30th, and wants to get tested, please contact me, and we'll see if we can get them in on the 24th. Especially any of your folks, Nancy, any of your folks that are interested in doing that, or Karen. They are opening with an understanding that they're going to do antiviral testing if they deem it necessary. And that's an important item based on a questionnaire that the person will fill out. They're just not going to do wide open testing. And I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to just speak a little bit about that, but this is a little bit of a change from the last time that we set that up.
So you want me to talk about the serology testing?
Yeah, I just as a note of the change and the agreement that was made yesterday.
Right. So initially, they were proposing to do serology testing, and that's the test that tests for antibodies on everyone. I think that the general public and anyone seeking a test needs to be aware that while serology testing is available and can help us from a public health perspective when done in a randomized way to tell us what proportion of the population may have been exposed to COVID as an individual, getting this test, there's still a lot that we don't know. If you test positive in a serology test, it tells you that you have been exposed. At this point, we still do not know what that means relative to immunity, whether you have immunity against this virus short-term, long-term. I can tell you that we have seen people that have tested positive with symptoms for COVID, gone on a month, two, tested negative in between, and then developed symptoms again. So I believe that there is some evidence that you can get COVID after, meaning that the immunity for this is not conferred automatically. So they are going to do some screenings for people that believe they have good information to suggest that they were exposed in the past. A serology test will provide that individual with a potential affirmation that, in fact, they had been exposed to COVID in the past, but that is all that test will tell folks. So in their medical judgment, that's something that they want to offer. It will not be offered to anyone who does not meet a certain set of criteria set forth by them about past exposure.
Thank you, Jennifer. So that pretty much sums it up, that we are offering it, but with a caveat. So that will be done also on the 24th at the firehouse, where we'll have 2 stations within the firehouse with the doors wide open, etc. So it's like an outside facility. So that will be going on. And again, if anyone's interested in that particular day for some reason, please contact me and we can try to get a handle on how much time we're going to need the company. They offered the full day if we need to, but again, it's only on a need basis. Fit testing. We've been doing a lot of fit testing over the last 2 weeks, and we've been assisting VNA, the schools, anyone just about that needed fit testing with their N95 masks. We found that some masks weren't fitting people. We're trying different tests. In fact, we're going to be doing a computerized test, the same one that we give our firefighters that facilitate breathing apparatus. And we have the component that fits on our system that will test N95 masks. And we're going to be using that to make sure that the folks are actually protected when they wear a mask. So that'll be ongoing. We have some more folks that we're going to have to schedule for testing in the near future, but we'll coordinate that and get that done for them. Jennifer also talked about the drive-through flu vaccination clinic plan that we're working with, and thanks to Melissa at Farm Valley Health District, we've been having ongoing meetings pertaining to this. We anticipate doing a drive-through flu vaccine vaccination clinic at the Weetog Firehouse in September, October timeframe. We have the adequate facility there to do it. We have the drive-through ability, people with vehicles parking in the rear and driving in through the park, which should work out pretty well. Keep the people off the streets if there's a line. Hopefully it won't be. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but this could be a good training aid in the event that we have the vaccine to do global vaccinations of the COVID-19 situation. So we'll be able to crank that in to do mass vaccinations through the system. We'll be ready to go once it becomes available. So I don't know if you want to add any more to that, Jennifer, or not, but that's what we're looking.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, we anticipate that we will not have sufficient vaccine, at least initially. That will be, provided to priority groups. But when and if we have sufficient, this will prepare us to do that.
Right. So that's what we're working on. In fact, we have a meeting again next week. So hopefully we'll get some of this stuff carved in stone. So we're able to work out next September, October, and we'll get that going. Another item is just on the fire side of things is fireworks. And this is a public audience too. We're having an ongoing problem with fireworks. There are a big difference between legal fireworks and illegal fireworks. The illegal fireworks, and it's really simple, they make a noise. And those are illegal. And we've been getting constant complaints about folks in the neighborhood, and they seem to think it's a positive thing. They can shoot them off and celebrate something or whatever. They can use legal ones, sparklers, etc. But as far as illegal mortars, and we've had some pretty sizable mortars being launched in backyards of houses, and giving a 300-foot span umbrella of sparks coming down, plus waking up all the neighborhood dogs. The dogs are going crazy, and we've been talking to Nick and trying to coordinate some action, because it's rather difficult in some cases trying to figure out which house they're coming from. So we're certainly paying attention, but people need to understand that we do have to take action if necessary with fireworks, because it is detriment to some people, and we have to understand. We have a lot of veterans in this community too, and a lot of them, unfortunately, with PTSD, and that is certainly a major concern of mine, to make sure that people aren't affected that way with the fireworks going off. There's a time in which fireworks are necessary. We have celebrations. We had them at the high school. It was a great show, and I applaud the high school's effort to try to make something different for the graduating classes, but not for the backyards. And we're afraid someone's going to get hurt. And especially with 4th of July coming up, we believe, it's just going to escalate. So hopefully people understand that they shouldn't use illegal fireworks, even though they bought them in New Hampshire or whatever. They are not legal in Connecticut. And with that, I want to thank everyone for your support over the years. It's been a great time. Sometimes it's been challenging, sometimes not, but it's always been an honor to serve this committee. And Sean, from this point on, I believe that you'll be able to reduce the time commitment for the entire meeting by probably 30 minutes, and it'll be a quick meeting from this point on.
I am not actually looking forward to that, Kevin, because you've been such an important part of this group and this community that I don't mind the extra minutes. It's the highlight of my month.
Or opinions.
That's why we have this group, because we need thoughtful, strong people to keep this community safe, and you've certainly been at the forefront of that, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
It's Chris. Just two quick comments and then a question. I'm sure we're going to have a recognition at a Board of Selectmen meeting coming up for Kevin as well. Reserve my comments about my thanks and experience I've had with Kevin. To the point of masks, for a few, I moved my family to North Carolina for the month of May because we felt much safer where our home is there, and then certainly watched the news. And once North Carolina opened up around Memorial Day, Virginia and the Carolinas cases spiked. Quite often I find myself in a restaurant picking up food when takeout was available, and indoor dining has been available in North Carolina since Memorial Day, albeit on a staggered basis. That sort of opened up everything at the same time without a phased approach. Quite often found myself picking up food in a restaurant with both patrons inside who did not look like they wore a mask in to get in, but also with none, I repeat, none of the staff, wait staff, counter staff or kitchen staff wearing masks. It's quite alarming how conditioned we are here, so I hope we continue with that. And clearly look at the challenges they're having in North Carolina. Last is a pointed question to Kevin. You mentioned that the testing, the public testing, there'll be an opportunity to fill paperwork out ahead of time. Will that also include sort of recommended time slotting as to when to show up so that people can get spaced out properly and are more efficiently moving through
Absolutely.
the test process? Has that been?
Yes.
Great.
That
Okay.
is one of the key points. That's one of the key points. They anticipate the station taking about 120 people a day is what their commitment is. And they want to schedule in the neighborhood of, they have 15-minute spots where people drive up and get tested. The process takes about 3 minutes. The key point is to make sure that their paperwork is submitted. One of the biggest thing that's happening, hopefully today or tomorrow, is there'll be a website posted for registration. So it's not a paperwork thing. Right now it's a paperwork. We have 3 sheets of paper that each person has to fill out. We send it in, we schedule. This is for the 24th for the fire department personnel. We're scheduling our people and we're getting them in here staggered and such. What's going to happen at the end of the month on the day that we're looking at will happen that the folks will be set up the same way. You'll get an appointment. You'll ask for a preference. They'll ask for a preference. If it's morning or afternoon, then they'll set you up for a time so that your commitment is there and they have everything staggered and positioned. So you're not there for an hour and a half waiting.
Thank you. That was just a little bit left out, and I appreciate that. We'll start to also spread the word the way that we can. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Chris. Any questions or words for Kevin? All right,
yeah,
so
I do have something, Sean.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
From a district standpoint, we certainly have a lot of recognition that is due to Kevin, and we all need to keep in mind this isn't just for years of service; it's actually for decades of service that Kevin has provided, and we all know that Kevin has always set the bar quite high. His standards have always been set on honesty, integrity, and fairness. And his dedication really has always been very steadfast. And I know personally that I've had the pleasure of traveling with Kevin and his family. Our families grew up together and we've always been pretty close. And I can tell you firsthand that when he goes on vacation, he doesn't turn his cell phone off and then turn it on 2 weeks later when he comes back to the office. He's always made himself available 24/7 for this town and its residents. And he's always operated that for his entire career, and we've always been in very good hands with Kevin. We know that he's leaving a very big pair of shoes that in part Mike's going to fill on the emergency management side, and as far as other recognition to let this group know is that we have talked about hosting an early morning breakfast specifically for all the folks here at Public Safety, which is something that we've done in the past, and we would like to do that for Kevin. We'll let you know when we're allowed to do that, when we can have an appropriate gathering and be able to. I know that also Kevin's wife Bobby is planning a retirement party that'll probably now be tentatively later in September, but whether this all happens before or after retirement, we'll have to wait and see based on masks or no masks or gatherings or no gatherings, but we'll keep everyone posted on that. And in the meantime, I know that his camper and his boat and his snowmobile are tuned up and ready to go. I know he's going to retire, but I also know he's not going to go very far.
Thank you, Gary. All right, folks, I look forward to that. Moving right along to Chief Bolter, please.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to also echo the comments and appreciation for Kevin's lifelong commitment to the safety of this town and certainly look forward to a more formal recognition for him later down the line this year. But thank you considerably from the entire police department, Kevin. Thank you. On to staff is very healthy at the police department in reference to COVID-19. So we are very, very pleased about that, and happy to hear that all the other agencies or departments are in that same boat. Our equipment, the PPE, is adequate, which is the way it has been. We have been able to get some gowns these last couple of weeks, and thank you again to Karen at SVAA for picking up our weekly allotment from the state. We are having a little bit of difficulty getting the N95s that we are looking for, but we do have some, and we're doing okay. We have continued to hand out masks to the public at Eno, and thank you again to Kristen and staff at Eno for allowing us to do that and helping out with that. We did reopen for fingerprint service by appointment only, and that began this past Monday of this week on the 15th, and that was basically because of a federal court order that mandated that. So we're moving forward with that and quickly trying to get applicants through. We're continuously assessing our return to our normal protocols for responding to medical calls. So as of right now, we're still working off of our modified directives that were dated March 19th, signed off by our medical control at St. Francis. And until things start to take a better turn or a consistent move in this direction, then we'll continue with what we're doing, but we're constantly monitoring that. And Karen and I just happened to speak about that yesterday to touch base on that. We have definitely returned to the sort of pre-COVID-19 number and frequency of calls for service. In what appears to be a slight increase in the intensity of our family violence calls. And just to give you an example, so for the first 5 months of 2019, we responded to about 32 calls that we would generalize as family offenses, some of them criminal, some of them not criminal. And then this year we're up to 52. So it was about a 62% increase. And we've seen sort of the severity of those. So for instance, we've had a couple cases recently of charging somebody with strangulation. So it did not, it did not cause death, but in their act of violence against a household member, they restricted the airflow of the person. So we've also seen an increase in the number of committals to the hospital for somebody who is, in immediate danger to themselves or somebody else. So these are numbers and things that we're going to be keeping an eye on, because there are, many issues and many factors and many concerns related to both of these and to some other topics that we're seeing sort of an increase of, or other areas. So I'll keep you informed about that, and there may be some sort of collective initiative at some point. Our motor vehicle thefts are, again, continuing to climb, and all of these cars are unlocked, and all of these cars have keys or key fobs. Just the other day, somebody was a little bit upset with us and pointed a little bit of the blame on the police department for the theft of their vehicle, which was unlocked and the keys were left in it. And saying that there was not enough public education out there for this. And I know consistently now for the last 3 or so years, not only has it been on our social media site, but the Board of Selectmen have directly addressed it. The town manager has addressed it. It's been addressed in these public meetings, and it's also throughout the entire state. So I'm not sure exactly how much more we can do on those areas, but we will be looking to see what we can do. And just for some numbers here, same time last year, first 5 months of the year, we had 1 vehicle that was stolen. This year we have 13. So huge increase. To follow up about the fireworks that Kevin had mentioned, we are certainly hearing an increase of that and trying to track those down. And then just another additional comment. The boom is definitely a big indicator that the firework is not legal, but also if it takes air, if it goes through the air, it's not allowed. Besides a sparkle that's in this really short area, if it soars through the air and even doesn't make much of a noise, it is still illegal here in Connecticut. So we'll be putting something out again, which we've done every year on social media, and then also a training to our officers every year as a refresher and a reminder to them. That's all that I have to report. If there are any questions or comments.
Chief, you hit my favorite topic once again, and I agree with you. I think you have done a more than adequate job, an excellent job of updating us, not only at these meetings, through social media, also at budget time and other points of the year. So I know it's hard. I know folks have a lot going on, but don't leave your cars unlocked with the keys in it. It's not to put too fine of a point on it, but it's basic common sense, folks. The police department does an outstanding job of protecting the community, but we simply don't have, nor does any community have, enough officers to cover 165 miles of roadway at any given moment in the middle of the night. That's not how a police force anywhere in the world is set up. So we all have to take precautions to protect our property as we do our homes. We change our smoke alarm batteries. We lock our doors at night. We do the basics. This should be part of the basic routine. Chief, could you touch on the body cameras just quickly again for this group?
Yes.
We don't need to go too far, but just that it's coming back around and we're all looking to consider it again.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been a request for several years now. It has basically been or become the standard for law enforcement. I think that we will very quickly see a legislative act that requires the use of body cameras. Whether there'll be any funding for that, we don't know. But I foresee that will happen pretty soon. I think that there is a very big benefit on several different levels. One being the accountability for people to be able to see everything, including all of the good that the officers do. It helps with evidence. It helps with just being able to show what has and what has not happened. There are some minor concerns about this. Minor may not be the more appropriate word, but there are some concerns about use of cameras and when they shouldn't be used, and officers turning them on or off when at certain times. So we will be working with, if there's a state requirement for that, we'll be working with the police commission or other boards to figure out really what type of policy we would be looking at here. But I think that moving in this direction as soon as we can is the best thing for our community. I've heard some comments that policing in our community may not need it because the police do a good job and the community is a very compliant and good community. And I would echo that the police do a good job and this community is an excellent community, but it's going to help with our transparency. It's going to help with the accountability, and it will help us moving forward.
I appreciate that, Chief. And that's an important topic, not only because of the current set of circumstances in the world, but also because, as you mentioned, this is something we've been talking about for a number of years, and I know recommended by the police commission.
Yes, absolutely.
And the police department many times. So Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is up for consideration at our next Board of Selectmen meeting, correct?
That's correct. We're hoping to have that on your agenda for the 6/22 meeting.
Okay. And Chief, you bring up some great points. This is a wonderful example where you, your department, and the police commission work together to iron out those thoughtful policies, not only for things like use of force or other things of policing, but also how these body cameras are going to be used and otherwise. And that work over the last few decades with the police commission and your department has been, I think, one of the reasons why we have such an amazing police department and relationship with the community, because you guys have worked together to uphold the law, but in a thoughtful way that respects and works with the community as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Chief? Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. Karen, ambulance.
Good morning, everybody. We continue to remain at full staff with everybody being healthy. Call volume has remained about the same, although we have seen a decrease in COVID-related calls. We continue to pick up the state distributed PPE and have been sharing any surplus with the town. I would like to underline what Jennifer said, that while the numbers are looking good, this is not the time to relax our social distancing and wearing of masks in public. And that being said, that a surgical grade mask or a KN95 are completely appropriate for the general public to wear. You do not have to wear an N95, and those should be saved for first responders and medical people that need those. That being said, we purchase reusable N95 masks that actually are washable and come with replacement filters, and each staff member has been given their own mask to keep. It comes with a container to save it in, to save on costs, and to give them something that's theirs that they can keep track of. So you'll continue to see our crews wearing masks when they come on calls and appropriate PPE. That will not stop until we're well out of the woods on this situation. We consider everybody to be possibly COVID positive when we go to your home. So don't be surprised if you still see us in gowns and masks and gloves, just for our own crew safety. That's really what I have. We still seem to be going status quo and moving along. And like I said, everybody's staying healthy. That's priority right now.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. It's always good when things are status quo or quiet in your world.
Absolutely.
All right. Questions for Karen? All right. Chief Baldus, fire.
Yes, hi, good morning. We continue as well as the other departments, thankfully, have been COVID-free with all of our members and members' families. So we're very grateful for their continued attention to social distancing, personal safety, and wearing of masks when needed and appropriate. I also want to take a quick minute and thank Kevin, obviously, for his work and direction and his guidance in his position as emergency management director. We're certainly going to miss him in this meeting from that perspective, but I also want to let everybody know that we're not losing Kevin. He's going to continue as our deputy chief on the volunteer side of the fire department, serving over 45 years for the volunteers, and he will continue to do so for quite a long time, I certainly hope. So we're not going to lose him completely, and he'll still be quite involved. So, but thanks again, Kevin, for your support and also for your help, especially with this committee.
Thanks, Jim.
You bet. Underscoring the fireworks certainly concern from a public safety perspective, but also from a fire perspective. Fireworks can certainly get out of hand very quickly. As I'm sure many of you have seen, we have entered into a pretty significant dry spell. So we have to be very mindful of the potentials for fire and other damages, collateral damages that can occur when fireworks are in fact used. Things can go wrong very quickly, and not only can we have injuries or worse, but we can also have property damage. So again, I certainly support and the enforcement efforts that the fire marshal's office and the police department will take in trying to keep this certainly at a minimum. The other thing that we've certainly noticed as well is with all the activities, a lot of people getting out more and more, is the level of pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic that we've seen on the roads, and certainly want to make sure that the public is aware that we still have to respond from an emergency services perspective, whether it be fire, police, ambulance, to be very mindful of that traffic, but also in construction zones. There's a tremendous amount of local as well as state activity going on the roads, and we all have to share it. Our drivers are certainly being reminded and reinforced in regards to the safety of the apparatus, but the public also has to remember these are very big units that have to get to the emergency. They will do so in a safe manner, but certainly also be mindful of providing the right of way whenever possible. So we certainly appreciate the public support in that effort. And finally, we are monitoring with Aquarian the significant increase in the use of water. Right now, there haven't been any restrictions placed, but again, because of the dry spell that we are in, Aquarian has seen an uptick in water, and people may have actually noticed a decrease in the water pressure coming into their homes for those that are serviced by the Aquarian system. We do, as a fire district, monitor that also very closely because we want to make sure we have adequate fire protection through our hydrant system. But I'll go, again, reinforcing the public that we do have adequate water on the road with 1,000 gallons for every engine that comes on board, plus our tanker, which carries another 3,000 gallons. So we bring a lot of water with us, but we do also depend on the fire hydrants as well, and we monitor that on a regular basis. So that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Any questions for Chief Baldridge? All right. Neil and Mark, Board of Education.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. We're pleased to report that we pulled off the graduation for the class of 2020 last Friday night, which certainly want to thank the other agencies on this phone call for their support of that important and unique event, as well as our other celebrations at the other schools for the end of year. And we're pleased we were able to celebrate that class appropriately under these circumstances. Our return to work on a staggered basis will start next Monday, June 22nd. The central office of the public schools will open that day, as will the main offices in the various schools. We will be on a AB day schedule for the next month. We've got about a 4-week time period that we're doing that. At this point, we are in the early part of summer. Visitors will be by appointment only, and we're encouraging most business to happen by email still, and we're still doing well on that. But there's been a lot of work to get the offices back open, and we're excited to get back there. As our offices open, our meal assistance program for the summer is closed. The last day was last Monday. As has been noted previously, the state only continued that program for districts where at least 50% of the families qualified for free or reduced lunch, and that was not us. So that program has ceased at this point, and our nutrition services department has started the planning for what serving lunch when schools open might look like. When we talk about the opening of school, we're doing extensive planning for a August reopening of our schools in whatever form that looks like. I think what is best for the community to know at this point is that we have promised to communicate at every 2 weeks what we know when we know it. So the dates that we have promised communication are July 1st, July 15th, July 29th, and August 12th. So people will get information in a timely way, and hopefully by publishing those dates and saying this is when we plan to pump out information, people can know that it will be coming. So that's what I think is the best. To go into any more detail at this point, when the governor and the commissioner have not released any guidelines, would not be fruitful. So I'll put those dates out there for the public to be aware of, and our superintendent put those out in a letter that went out earlier this week. And I will close certainly by congratulating Kevin on his retirement and thanking him for his tremendous support of the school system over the years. So that's what I have for today. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Neil.
Neil, appreciate that. And because I think this is true. So obviously you guys are doing a thoughtful amount of communication, but you, as you stated, you are subject to the guidance from the state. So if folks get frustrated or otherwise, this is an evolving process. So we're not going to have the information as soon as we want it. Obviously, we all want to know right now what's happening in the fall, but that's simply not the case, right?
That absolutely. What we're being told, Sean, is that the governor and commissioner of education are supposed to release guidelines by the end of June that assist us with the planning. But right now we don't have that.
Yep. And I'm not in any way being critical of the governor or the commissioner. This is an evolving situation. So they could make a decision today that is completely invalid in a month, and they've got to shift, right? So there's a time and there's analysis that needs to be done to make these types of decisions. And as you just said, there's the planning part, and then there's the actual, what are we going to do? So,
yeah.
All right. And because again, much like the playgrounds and cars and everything else, I know people are frustrated. They want instantaneous action, but that is simply not the environment we are in, especially with COVID, because it constantly evolves underneath us. All right. Mark, anything to add to that? Is Mark on?
Yep, I'm here. No, Neil hit everything on the head, so I'm going to end there and just say to Kevin, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thanks, Mark. It's been great.
All right. Tom Roy, Public Works.
Well, good morning, everybody. I think similar to everybody, we've been very fortunate, and Public Works continues to be at full staff. Everybody is working hard to maintain their social distancing, and we're really encouraging the mask wearing throughout the day. And I think we're seeing the benefits of that. Our buildings and ground staff has been terribly busy with getting the buildings prepared for both employees coming back and also the longer goal of being back open to the public. They've been doing a really fine job with that, but supplies of things like plexiglass have been hard to come by. We have enough for right now, but we're certainly keeping our eyes open for that. We are setting ourselves up with additional cleaning supplies for all of the common equipment that's going to be used. There's going to be essentially hand sanitizer just about everywhere you look. And we're really hoping to make sure that when the employees come back, that not only are they safe, but they also feel comfortable with the work environment. I think Kristen's formed next on the line. She's going to talk about the great work they did this past week with giving away food, and the Buildings and Grounds Department was glad they were part of that. We had to locate that in the parking lots off of Iron Horse with the drive-through, and now that Fiddler's Green is open, we weren't able to extend the long line into their parking lot anymore. So it was a pretty big logistical effort, but I think it really turned out well. And I think to echo everybody else's thoughts, Kevin, I wish you well, and I really enjoyed working with you. And there's nothing like, those conversations in the middle of the night, standing in a snowstorm, or all of the other fun places that we've talked during stressful times. So I really appreciate working with you.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, you're not going to miss the questions on the roads, right? Just kidding. All right. I got to have a little fun with you, Kevin. Sorry. Social services, Kristen.
Hi, good morning. Thank you to everybody that's already reported, and we will also miss working with Kevin. The few years that I've been here, we've really enjoyed working together. So thank you, Kevin, and also going to look forward to a celebration with him when we're able to. Social services continues to operate as we've been reporting. We had a really great distribution this past week, which you've heard about. I'm just going to pull up some numbers to share with you in my pictures here. We, as you heard from Tom, we moved to Iron Horse because of the traffic with Fiddler's Green being open again. We needed more space to be able to do it. And with the numbers, you'll understand why. So with our curbside pickup on Monday, we served 126 households. That included 55 families and 71 individuals. We gave away 224 bags of food That was non-perishable food and 125 bags of fresh produce. We also gave away $9,000 worth of gift cards that day, and we had volunteers that delivered to 28 homebound individuals and seniors. So this curbside method of our food distribution has really grown, and people have come to really appreciate it and rely on it. We're seeing more families now than we ever did at our normal cheese days. Our normal cheese days, we were averaging 80. And so that's almost 50 more households than what we're used to handling. We're also continuing with the mask distributions. As you heard, the chief and the police department have been able to hand out some masks curbside, and that's been really wonderful. We've also been handing out the masks at the food distributions and at our Wednesday lunch distributions. We've received over 2,000 masks from our sewers. So that's just been an incredible effort. We do have masks left. We've got plenty of masks. So if anybody still needs one, please let us know and we'll be happy to get those to you. As you heard from Maria, our senior center, hopefully we can consider reopening after Labor Day, but we will continue to work with the health department and follow the guidance of the state on that. Our Wednesday lunch distribution with our seniors continues to go very well. And we're getting a lot of traffic on the VNA blood sugar and blood pressure checks that are being offered at that time as well. We're looking forward to returning to our building next week on the A and B schedule. Eno is going to be following that schedule. And I think that's pretty much it for us. Our staff is healthy. We're going to be anticipating a retirement at the end of the summer of our administrative assistant. So more information will come on that. She's also had decades of service to the town, and we're going to look forward to celebrating her as well. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you for that. Appreciate all your work. Any questions?
You're welcome.
For Kristen? All right. Nancy, good morning. VNA update.
Good morning. I'm happy to say that we remain healthy. I'm amazed to share that our business is booming. Maybe not always a good thing, but hospitals are clearly back in business. And I think that the lull that we experienced in this COVID pandemic, we're going to see, or we already have seen, a recovery much faster than anybody ever anticipated. Luckily, we really are well stocked with PPE because of the state distribution and everybody else in this, committee helping us out. Again, I want to reiterate a thank you to Kevin and Emergency for doing our fit testing or 2 weeks ago. It's an amazing experience. They're very professional. It was handled so well, and so many people got taken care of so quickly. I'm just not surprised. And with regards to Kevin stepping down from his current formal position, luckily in my career, I've had the opportunity to work for the military, lots of different divisions. It is not a surprise to know that you have an Air Force background because you do aim high, and it's really been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
You're welcome.
It's been great.
Well said, Nancy. All right, any questions for Nancy? Sarah, business community, Main Street, how are you?
So good morning. We are still busy. We've been helping to coordinate the phase 2 reopening of the businesses, which included services such as nail salons, tattoo salons, gyms, etc. To reiterate, while businesses including restaurants, can reopen for indoor dining, there are several Simsbury restaurants that have opted not to do so yet. So reminder to the public that if you're planning on doing indoor dining, please call ahead or check with the restaurant to make sure that they're doing that, or offering that at that time. And also a lot are either recommending or requiring reservations to stagger the amount of people and social distancing protocols. All of our restaurants are now reopened with the exception of Twig's Lounge in the Simsbury Inn. So Plan B is reopening officially today after being on hiatus since March. And McLadden's had to shut down briefly due to staff, but is back open completely again. So again, thanks to the health district because they have to do reopening inspections to get all of our restaurants online. The Simsbury Inn and the 1820 House, although they could reopen, are not planning on reopening until sometime in August. Thanks to Kevin Kowalski and the fire department for picking up our PPE for the businesses. It does look like the state has shut down the request for the infrared thermometers as well as the disposable masks. So a very, very special thanks to Karen and the SVAA. They have gone out of their way to help Main Street provide our business community with really great face shields, disposable masks, everything that we could possibly need. We did update the 165 restaurant business lists again Tuesday night for the phase 2 opening. So that is on our website on shopsimsbury.com. It's also on Facebook, and please share that to let people know. Much is open, but we do still have some businesses closed. The one thing we are looking for, the business community is looking for that they cannot find right now is the disinfecting wipes. So if there are any leads, please contact me offline afterwards. And then I just really want to echo everyone's comments, especially Gary's comments about Kevin. Kevin is much like me, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At one point, I didn't realize he was in Italy until he texted me back about something. So Kevin, you, especially during the COVID-19 crisis, have been so focused on the business recovery. Our businesses thank you. Simsbury Main Street Partnership thanks you. You really have been wonderful, but we will continue to see you, and I have your cell phone number.
Okay, Sarah, you can use it anytime. One other thing, if I may, Sarah, we have some more thermometers in stock. If you run into a jam, give us a call.
I will do so. We may need some.
Appreciate that. All right. Thank you for the update, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? All right. Mark Massaro, you're always so patient, sir. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me. Just want to reiterate for any customers, both commercial, industrial, residential, all I should say, not both. If our customers that are out there listening are still looking for some assistance with paying their bills, please reach out to our customer service center. We have representatives standing by, waiting to help with special payment arrangements. Any type of discussion in their billing, they're waiting to help. And to talk about Kevin, I've known him now for just about 10 years. And one of my first, I think, major interactions was during Superstorm Sandy, where we had some flooding down in the Weetag area. And I remember getting the phone call asking if he could pick up some of our staff and put them on a boat to get to some houses to make the houses safe. And in the beginning, I didn't know what to say. I thought he was joking, but he was dead serious. And we got staff, worked with Kevin in the fire department, and did make that area safe without really turning power off to a large area. So very, very focused, very dedicated, always a gentleman and a professional, and just wish you well.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, Mike Long, I know you enjoy a long meeting. Is there anything that you would like to add for the good of the order, sir? You're on mute. No, okay. We can see you. All right, I will catch up with you after, good sir. All right, quickly this morning, something that's been debated for a long time and obviously got sidetracked due to COVID, and rightly so, but we now need to address is the recommendation of the ordinance you'll see before you in your packet. If you recall, many months ago, a subcommittee of myself, Gary, Maria, the chief, Chris, went to work on crafting an ordinance that would try to front-end address the intentional feeding of wildlife, so bear, deer, coyote, for several reasons. One, due to the continued run-in and incident with bears, but also with coyote, and many issues with many close calls with children or family members, but also loss of life for pets. So, you know, we live in a beautiful community. We have 33% of it preserved as woodlot and fields, et cetera. And that does lead to the animals and humans interacting on a regular basis. So it appears that we've long passed the point of waiting for the state to do anything. And we believe that this community wants to step up and continue to address the bear challenge. And if we can stamp out intentional feeding, that could be one step closer to having the bears return to normal. You can go back in the woods and forage and not attend our houses, barbecues, and trash day. So before you have an ordinance. I'll hit the highlights quickly, and then we can have a brief discussion on it. The intent is to get feedback and/or endorsement from this body today to be considered on Monday by the Board of Selectmen for a public hearing. So the board will not pass it on Monday. The board will then take additional public comment. So this draft does not need to be 100% today, but I would ask that it be in the spirit of what we're looking for, and I think that's what we have. We tried to balance the feedback that we got early on. We know that folks are concerned, as you'll see in the definitions section, the wildlife includes but is not limited to. Again, we didn't catch all there, but we put the big ones, the ones that are causing a challenge. We believe this is consistent with others that have done this across the state, as well as potentially draft language that the state was considering from a legislative standpoint. The two big ones in there are bears and coyotes. We also put bobcats and fisher cats, which are less of an animal that interact with, but still of concern. You'll notice that we did allow for bird feeding. It is to be fed. They are to be fed from December 1st to March 31st. This is going to be a challenge for some folks, as I know many, including my family, likes to feed the birds and see them in the community. But if this community is serious about removing the bears from our neighborhoods, this is a step we must take. There is alternative seed, the thistle or Niger, that we've learned that bears simply do not like. Apparently it is bitter. So during the on months for feeding, folks in the winter can feed the cardinals and the other birds that are around and enjoy them with this type of seed. Again, it's we have a provision in here for that. We understand there might be unintentional feeding, and we're not looking to necessarily clamp down on that, to educate. And then, Chief, you can do a better job than I on explaining this, but this ordinance is not meant to be completely black or white. The officers that are going to enforce will be able to exercise thoughtful discretion, and that they don't have to immediately ticket and escalate the situation. We believe education, as with anything in this community, is the first step. And if we continue to see intentional non-compliance that puts others in harm's way, then there are provisions in here for the officers to address that. And Chief, you want to expand on that for me?
Yep. No, I think you described that very well. So the philosophy on the enforcement aspect is not built into the ordinance, but it's right in line with our philosophy on how we handle everything. So the intention will be making sure people have a good understanding of what the ordinance is, what a violation or a potential violation is, and giving some people some time to adjust to that, because I know that will be difficult for some, but also just taking a very reasonable stance on meeting the objective here, which is not feeding the wildlife, not attracting the wildlife to our homes, to our parks, to anywhere where it could be a hazard to humans and then to the animals.
I appreciate that. And again, I know that there are going to be many opinions, many different perspectives on this, but you all know that I, for one, don't necessarily agree with ordinances generally, but for this one, I'm putting aside my personal thoughts because I think we have an obligation to take steps to continue to protect the community. The town manager's family recently had an interaction with a bear that, again, is funny in hindsight, but could have been very tragic given the proximity the bear was to her daughter. I've had the same situations, dozens, hundreds of us have had that. And I don't want to sit and wait until something happens for this community to act. We are limited in what we can do, but this is something we can do. We also need to continue to work with the state to thoughtfully manage the population. I'm not suggesting we shoot them locally. We don't have the authority to do that. That is not what this is about. And I'm not interested in the public hearing devolving into that, because I know there's a lot of other opinions and perspective on that space. But this is simply, what can the community, through our ordinance powers on the Board of Selectmen, do to try to make the community, whether it's 1% or 100% more safe. I'm willing to do that because I think it's important. So with that, I'll be quiet. Maria, is there additional thoughts or others that have questions, concerns, thoughts on the topic?
I think you covered it really well. And I just want to thank the work group for their efforts on it. And I think it's in pretty solid shape for the public hearing.
Okay. Mike, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, I think I'm back on now. But,
yeah, we got you now. Sorry, sir.
That's okay. I would, in the draft of the ordinance itself, I don't know if you have it in front of you or near you, Sean, but under the definition of wildlife, I would just strike the 3 words "and wild birds," because while I know what the intent is, the wild bird are not being described in that paragraph.
Okay. All right. I'll take that back.
And then you would just the bird. Yeah, I think it would just read better. That's all. I do have a couple of comments if you're ready for them that I didn't have before because I couldn't get unmuted.
I promise I will give. I promise you can have those in 1 minute. Let me just get additional thoughts on this, Mike, and I'm sorry for not getting them earlier.
Go ahead.
So,
no problem.
Other thoughts on this? Generally, it makes sense to folks. Okay. All right. So with that, while we don't necessarily formally, as a body, endorse, a symbolic endorsement would be important if folks are willing to send this up to the Board of Selectmen. So I'll move that we forward this this ordinance to the Board of Selectmen for consideration and public hearing.
I would second that.
Any other questions or thoughts? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it's a bit different topic than we've been used to for the last couple of months, but obviously we've got many aspects of this town to take care of. With that, Mr. Long, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to remind everyone on this committee of the reception that the police department received in the past 60 days or so as we've gone through this activity with Black Lives Matter, the situation in Minneapolis and elsewhere, the demonstration in Simsbury as well as other places. I have heard nothing but good reports from people who did take place or who watched that demonstration take place on the behavior of the police department in Simsbury, particularly the chief, who was right out there talking with everybody who wanted to say anything. I think it's something we can all be proud of, and I just like to publicly recognize that. I think he did a terrific job of that. Secondly, I did want to also comment on the proposal to go forward with the body cameras. I'm 100% behind that. We proposed that originally 5 years ago and have been trying to get it in place ever since. And somehow it didn't seem like an important thing for people at the time, but I think it's important for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the protection of the community in terms of false accusations, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's very, very important to go forward with that. And the last comment I wanted to make, what's his name? Oh, the fire marshal. Yeah, having been with the private industry in Simsbury for 40 years, looking and dealing with the fire marshal from a slightly different perspective, perhaps than anyone else in this group, I do want to comment that the things that have been said applied to Kevin in his dealings with the private sector as well. He was always very professional, very on the ball, very helpful, there when you need them. And I too would like to join in and Kevin, and wishing you well and congratulating you for a great career here in Simsbury.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And I was remiss. I should have mentioned. I did come down to be part of and see the protest with the Black Lives Matter event, and I was there both to support the topic of the day, obviously Black Lives Matter, but also our police department at the same time. And I don't believe that those topics are exclusive. I believe that you can do both at the same time. And as I walked around, that's exactly what I saw with the chief. For those of you that may not have been able to see it, but to Mike's point, Chief and his leadership and the officers walked around as if it was Septemberfest, as if it was a high school graduation, as if it was a pack event. No difference, smiles, interactions. Saw the chief posing for pictures with folks. Obviously appropriate social distancing where appropriate, but I couldn't have been more proud of both the community and our police department for once again showcasing that we can make change and we can have a difference of opinions, but do so peacefully and have a thoughtful discussion, and that we should stand there and do it together. And again, Chief, I commented to Maria and to others, again, just the happy, normal, you're the chief, what I've always seen from you, look on your face, very comfortable, very part of the community. Not surprised, but once again, we are very lucky to have you in this community. So thank you, sir.
Thank you to both of you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Mr. Kowalski, would you like the last word, sir?
No, I think I spoke enough.
We will miss you dearly, my friend. We wish you the best, and we look forward to celebrating you appropriately soon. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.